The dash cam still runs. Headlights, empty road, the soft tick of the indicator. Then the driver's seat is empty, the seatbelt still buckled, and the clock on the radio reads 12:00. Listen to that for a second. The engine, the road, a man humming under his breath, and then nothing. No door, no sound. Just an empty seat moving down a highway at 60 miles an hour. That recording is real. It exists, and it is one of 3 I want to show you tonight. Because there is something about midnight, that thin seam, where one day stops being itself and quietly becomes another. Most of us are asleep for it. We never notice the crossing. But a small number of people seem to step across that line and simply not come back. 3 cases. 3 people who were there at 11:59 and gone by 12:00. No struggle. No goodbye. Just a clock, still ticking, in a place where someone used to be. Let's start with the road. The first case is the dashcam. His name was Daniel, 34. A night shift electrician driving home along a rural stretch he'd driven 1,000 times. His car had a cheap dashcam he'd installed himself, the kind that loops over old footage unless something triggers it to save. That night, something triggered it. The footage is 11 minutes long. For 10 of those minutes, it is the most ordinary thing in the world. Dark fields. The white line. Daniel, half singing along to a song the camera mic barely catches. He yawns. He checks his mirror. At the 10-minute mark, the radio clock turns to 12. And the dash cam picks up a sound, not loud. A kind of low pressure, like the moment before your ears pop on a plane. The picture doesn't change. The headlights stay steady. The car keeps its lane. But Daniel stops singing. Mid-word. For the next 40 seconds, the car drives perfectly. Straight. Smooth. Holding speed. And the driver's seat is empty. The seatbelt is still fastened across a body that is no longer there. Then the car drifts, gently, almost politely, off the road and into the grass, where it rolled to a stop against a fence post. The engine idled until the tank ran dry. They found the car the next morning. Doors locked from the inside. His phone in the cup holder. His shoes still in the footwell. The police listed it as a missing person. The dashcam, they said, must have malfunctioned. They never explained the seatbelt. That's case 1. The second case happened indoors, which somehow makes it worse. A woman named Carol lived alone in a 3rd-floor apartment. Careful person. Locked everything twice. Kept a little notebook by the kettle where she wrote the time she went to bed. Every single night, a habit from a sleep study she'd done years before. Her sister had a key. When Carol didn't answer for 2 days, the sister let herself in. The apartment was perfect. Bed made. Dishes done. Heating on. And on the kitchen counter, the notebook, open to that night's page. The last line read, 11:58. Heard knocking. Not at my door. Underneath it, in slightly different handwriting, rushed, pressed hard enough to tear the paper, was one more line. 12. It's at my door now. That was all. No sign of forced entry. The chain was still across the door from the inside. The sister had to break it to get in. Here's the part, the report buried near the bottom. The downstairs neighbor was interviewed. He said he'd been up that night and heard footsteps on the stairs around midnight. Going up. He waited to hear them come back down. They never did. Carol has never been found. The notebook is in an evidence locker, and her sister, who I spoke to through a researcher, said only one thing about it. She said the second line wasn't Carol's handwriting, but it wasn't anyone else's either. It was Carol's handwriting, she said, the way you'd write if your hand was being held. That's case 2. The third one I almost didn't include, because the others have a clock, a recording, a notebook. Something you can hold. This one has almost nothing, and that's exactly why it stays with me. A group of friends, camping, 5 of them, remote site, no signal, the kind of dark that has weight to it. They'd done this trip every year. One of them, A guy named Marcus was the one who couldn't sleep. The others teased him about it. Around midnight, he got up to add wood to the fire. They heard him do it. The crack of a log, the shift of the embers. One of them, half asleep, said thanks, Marcus. And he answered, just yeah. Well, in the morning, the fire was out. Marcus's sleeping bag was empty, still zipped from the outside, which you cannot do to yourself. His boots were by the fire, laces tied. There were footprints leading away from the camp into the tree line. 4 sets. But there had been 5 of them, and only Marcus was gone. 3 friends accounted for, asleep in the tent. So whose were the other footprints, walking out beside his? The prints went 40 feet into the trees. And then, all of them, every set, simply stopped, mid-stride, as if the ground had ended and there was nowhere left to walk. The search lasted 9 days. They found his water bottle a mile away, full, cap on, nothing else. One of his friends said something to the rangers that didn't make the official record, but made it into a forum post years later. She said that when she replayed that night in her head, she kept landing on one detail. When the voice by the fire said, yeah, it didn't sound like Marcus. 3 people, a road, a room, a forest, different places, different lives, no connection between them at all, except for the time on the clock. 11:59, and they were here. 12:01, and they were a story. We like to think of midnight as a number, a position of 2 hands. But every culture that came before us treated it as a door. The hour, the dead walk, the hinge of the night. They locked things. They lit fires. They wrote down the time they went to bed. Maybe they knew something we forgot. So tonight, when your clock turns over and the day quietly becomes another day, pay attention to the silence right before it. And if you hear knocking, check whether it's at your door. If this kept you up, the next file is already waiting in the dark. So subscribe and keep the lights on with us.